Joint practice and preseason game, both.
Yeah, we got another preseason game. This time it's Saturday at 7 p.m., so a little bit of a better time for me on the West Coast, a little 4 o'clock.
Are we going to Miami? Are we doing this?
Yeah, that should be our road game, right? I tell you what.
This time of year is not as great to be down there, but
no. But if we see Miami in the regular season, that's a Las Vegas tier road game destination. That's got to be a top tier one, right? But I'm definitely going the Miami scouting report. Let's get into it here. Most talented offense in the NFL across the board.
They got Tyreek Hill. He'll put you up there regardless of anybody else.
We got Tyreek Hill, who was the best player in football last year, not named Pat Mahomes, and you could argue just was the best player in football last year.
Your number one fantasy pick, right?
Yep. It will be until he's not. But yes, he's my number one fantasy pick for sure. You got Jaylen Waddle, who I think is a top 15 wide receiver in the NFL, and I think that's a guy that if Hill goes down, you're having conversations about Waddle being a top 10 guy. Waddle's incredibly talented, great wide receiver, speedster as well. You've got Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert at running back, both just speedsters, and Mostert can bruise you. Achane, more of a make you miss and then blow by you all the way down the field. Just a stud there. But man, Miami's good, and there are no slouches on defense either. So if you thought we were outmatched against the Jets, we are thoroughly outmatched against Miami, and we will see Tua actually play. Tua will actually practice, and he will probably play in that preseason game would be my guess. Since it's the second preseason game, you usually see starters go for a half. I think maybe with Tua's injury history, he might only go for a couple series or something like that, and I think Tua is a damn good quarterback. I know people don't give him the respect, but I think you see a couple less concussions, and I think people are talking about him a little bit higher. But somebody's got to be able to stay on the field. Yeah. But yeah, that's my Miami scouting report. How much do you think the starters will play, Pop, and how much do you think they should play for the Commanders?
It's an interesting one. I think offensively, a lot has to do with the health of the offensive line, right? It kind of ties into another topic we've got here. But I mean, if our top three tackles are not able to go, I don't think they're going to be anxious. I think their number one priority is getting Jayden Daniels to game one, and I think that if we can't have our full starting offensive line, I think you're going to see. We talked about the deep ball that Jayden passed and almost like DQ going, great play, not thrilled he called that audible because they don't want to see him take any risks. And so I think the story this week that's going to evolve is how many of those offensive linemen are actually going to be available. Cornelius Lucas has had some personal issues he's dealing with. Hope everything's okay there. Wiley has tightness. We don't really know where. Yeah. You can speculate as to where his tightness is, but, and then Brandon Coleman seems to be dealing with some sort of pectoral issue. I don't think he's, I don't know. It's early. We'll get burnt by that when we put this out on Thursday, but, it doesn't sound real optimistic that he's going to be ready for this game, and he needs that work. It's kind of bothersome. So, how much will they play? I think it's going to be less than we think it should be. I'm not sure it's that full half. It might be 2-3 series instead of just the one and out. But I think a lot's going to depend on that health of that offensive line and who are
at a certain point. At a certain point, because you assume no starters are going to play in that third preseason game, right?
Right.
You assume an absolute minimum amount of starters. But at a certain point, I'm going to put my Brian Mitchell hat on here. Are we really going to roll out Jayden Daniels with Wiley and Coleman for the first time in week one against Tampa? Or is our quarterback going to get no real game work with both of his starting tackles? At a certain point, if this is just soreness or if this is them trying not to, this ambiguous report of tightness with Wiley, at a certain point, we do have to get this guy a little bit of game work with his starting offensive line unless you're just that confident. So do we see them go in the third game, even maybe just for a series? It's interesting, man. I think
in the end we really don't know. Like, we're just not sure how much playing time they're going to have.
Yeah.
Honestly, the preseason is just kind of, in a way, I'm just trying to have as much fun with it. Watch as many of the different guys as we can. The starting group, you just don't get real satisfaction from it, right? So yeah, I think they're going to, we don't know. We'll find out more through the course of the week. We're not sure how much you're going to play.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a quarter, but I don't think it's a full half. That'd be my assumption. And if I'm proven wrong through the course of the week, if DQ gives us more clues by the time some of you are watching this, great. Yeah. What I would like to see, of course, you'd like to see him get through a full half, but the most important thing of all of this, coming out healthy. It's just is, I mean, I think the reality of football today, there was part of me that when you started hearing about all these guys that were sitting out the first preseason game, I was thinking, man, is this even worth it? Should they just, do the joint practices and show that live, right?
Yeah.
But then it turned out good. It turned out that Jayden Daniels got that first drive in, and we saw that great play, and it was a confidence builder, and it was very likely a good thing from him. And Dan Quinn talked about getting his routine down, and he wants him to continue to work on that against Miami. What'd you like about the pregame routine? Those things people don't seem to value very much, given the B-Mitch comment about just, even if you're a little nicked up, play. But if they're hurt, they're hurt. I mean, if Wiley and Coleman are hurt, they're hurt. And I doubt we're going to see that combination and Jayden Daniels in this game, given where we sit right now.
Yeah, it's well, I think if you don't at least get Cornelius Lucas out there at left tackle, I think it's at a point
he's at least healthy.
Yeah. If you don't at least get him out there at left tackle, and I don't know what he's dealing with off the field, frankly, I'm glad it's staying private. These guys are people too. It's his life. It clearly must be pretty serious, and I hope everything's okay and he's doing all right. But if you can't at least get Cornelius Lucas at left tackle, why do you even put him out there? Why even? What's the point? What's the point? I don't see the point. I'm going the anti-B-Mitch route here. But if you can't get Cornelius Lucas out there at left tackle, run him out there for a series again and have him pass the ball 3 times.
Well, I was thinking that against the Jets when we heard none of the 3 tackles were playing. I was like, well, they're going to pull Jayden, but clearly they put him out there with the idea of being ultra conservative, right?
Yeah.
And more than likely, I think that's what you'll see, depending on the healthy offensive line. Maybe it's kind of a game time thing. If they feel like the protection's holding up and they're getting good production out of the offense and they're feeling fairly good about that, maybe he plays a little more. But I tell you, the second that you're not sure, get him out of there.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And if you think, Brandon Coleman can be 100% healthy and ready to go week 1, if he doesn't play at all, then don't play him, of course.
You don't love the fact that Brandon Coleman's not playing because you wonder how much he can get out of practice, although I know there's some one-on-one work. But if he's really trending to be the star, it'd be great to see him get some work. But I'm not sure his health's going to allow it.
Yeah, we'll see. And you hope, injuries can happen anytime, and they are bizarre. But this is a guy that was injured a bit in college, and that's why his draft stock fell. Some of injuries is a pain tolerance thing, right? Some guys are able to play through more things than others. Not calling the guy soft by any means. I mean, he could throw me off the top of a building in a second. But you hope that this is not a sign of things to come with Brandon Coleman. But that's the breakdown on what we want to see for that game. Is there anything you're looking at on the defensive side of the ball, Pop? I mean, I don't really have an eye on
I think
much.
What we want to see, I think a key thing there, let's talk about players for a second, because we've got a little bit of time, a couple more minutes here. Let's talk about players for a second. Don't you think that probably one of the big, you touched on it earlier, Jahan Dotson, like we've got to start seeing Jahan step up and look like that first round pick and look like the guy that we thought he was in year 1. We gave him a pass last year because of coaching and overall vibe within the team. but he looks like more so far from what we've seen and heard, more like year 2 Jahan Dotson than year 1 Jahan Dotson, who we thought, well, good, really solid, good rookie season, and he's climbing. And it's scary, like all the thoughts around the sure hands. You know how we heard the stories. He always carries a football around with him. He doesn't have drops. Those sure hands are suddenly gone. And that just, to me, seems like a mental confidence thing than anything else, because, you know, catching the ball has nothing to do with size, speed, all those other attributes, right? It hits your hands, you hang on to it. And I think Jahan Dotson, to me, is someone that we need to start seeing step up. And I really don't know where. It was interesting. He played deep into the game. Maybe that's just a question of bodies and availability, but you didn't see Zacchaeus in the second half of that game very much. Maybe we did. You know, I could be wrong there, but you know, I think he's a guy that this is a big game for as much as anyone else.
Yeah, I really think, I genuinely think there's more of a threat for Diami supplanting Jahan at 2 than there is for like Zacchaeus supplanting Diami at 3. I think. We'll see.
Well, if you were trying to, if you think of combinations and who would make the most sense as a slot guy, you know, Diami's not a slot guy, right? He's a down the field burner. We've seen him not love going across the middle very much. It is a part of his game he's going to need to improve on. So slot might come down to being between Jahan and Zacchaeus, or Zacchaeus and slot. Maybe it's a combination between Jahan and Zacchaeus and slot, or Jahan and Diami for that 2 spot, as you said. And it's interesting. I still think it's Jahan's number 2.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to start seeing him performing, you know, and showing it to us a little bit more than what we've seen, I think.
Let's put a pin and try and remember to come back to the wide receiver conversation next week, because I think that's an interesting. I think that could be a full topic. I think that's probably the most competitive, and maybe not for the best reasons, but probably the most competitive position group right now on the roster. You have a combination of underperforming guys, underperforming brand name guys with overperforming lower roster guys. That is, I think, will be interesting for how that's going to shake out.
In general, I like what you said earlier, right? Just to maybe, you know, from my perspective, some closing thoughts on this Miami game. You know, that is a high-powered offense. That's an offense that, again, we're likely to get the starting group. We're likely to see them. You know, McDaniels is a great offensive coach and mind. He's going to look to, you know, he doesn't seem to me to be a guy that goes half speed and anything when he's coaching. If he gets that group out there, he's going to try to put up some points. This would have been a team that we played last year and we got no shot, right?
Well, we didn't have a shot last year.
Exactly.
When we played them.
Yeah, we got blown off the field, and it was one of those things leading up to the game. What do we look like? How do we compare? How does the defense? You know, defense is healthy for the most part. They just sack guys to not, you know, play them, which was the right call. Fully appreciate it. But we get that start in D-line. We get that full start in defense. How do they match up? What does it look like? That's going to be super interesting. You know, offensively, I think we'll be okay. I think you're going to continue to see Kingsbury do Cliff Kingsbury things. We're going to see some good balance there. You know, and I think they're going to slowly build with JD. See how the audibles he calls next week. But we got to put a pin in talking about this backup quarterback battle for next week. I'm just joking.
Well, what a waste of a pin.
But what about you? Like, what do you think? Like, just wrap up your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a Miami team that, I mean, there's probably 20 defenses in the NFL that don't have a shot against them. So you don't want to roll over and quit, but at the same time, you got to go, is there any way we can affect what they're doing? We've got our work cut out for us for sure. I think the recipe to beat Miami generally has been get that temperature below 50 degrees and outscore them. That's pretty much the only way to beat Miami since McDaniel's taken over down there. You're not going to hold them to less than 28 points. So I'm not going to overreact to what's going on the defensive side of the ball against them unless Tua's not playing and Tyreek's not playing and Waddle's not playing and our starters getting torched by their backups. But even then, man, I mean, I'm not too worried about that because the only time we see Miami this year is if we run into them in the Super Bowl. So you can kind of just keep it moving and not be too worried about having to play them because we're not going to see them in the Super Bowl. We'll see the Chiefs.
I still think you want to see that this team be able to compete.
Sure.
But
it's preseason, man. I mean, it's like at a certain point, it's not too between the combination of like just the gap of how good Miami is and the fact that it's preseason. I'm not too worried about taking anything away from at least the defensive side of the ball.
I disagree. We got a coach up north here locally that takes preseason pretty seriously, and that program seems to do pretty well. I think it's important that we don't just get blown off the field.
Yeah,
that would be a bad look.
We also had a coach that took preseason pretty seriously last year, and we beat that other coach, and we were 4-13. So you never know. The Detroit Lions were undefeated in the preseason in their winless year.
There's none of that stuff really matters, right? What happened in the past, maybe I started it with Harbaugh, but it's about setting a tone, and I think Dan Quinn wants to set a tone with this team and setting a tone of, well, it's okay, we got doors locked off of us because it's preseason. I get your point from a fan's point of view.
It's not.
Don't panic.
A little more nuanced.
I think we want to see a different vibe from this group, right? And hopefully that's what we'll see. And I've gone on record to say my bold prediction is I think this defense is going to be much, much, much improved. Let's see it.
We shall see.
Let's see it.
We shall see. So I say we wrap up the preseason segment. You want to hit the Kikats of the week, Pop?
That's right. I forgot. Extra
want to
segment.
get into it? Yeah, I mean, people have been waiting an hour for it. But we are going to get into it. We're going to drop the Kikats of the week back on you guys. Guys, those of you who are with us, got to be loyal fans, got to know about the Kikats of the week. But I think we'll probably end up clipping this up, and you guys will see some other good stuff about it. Well, let's get into it, man. Kikats of the week this week, pretty clear, pretty easy. This guy, I feel like he might be the Kikats of the week champion all time. He's got to be up there. RG3 just setting the internet ablaze with the croissant picture. If you know, you know. Just no self-respect on the young man. It's one thing when somebody does you dirty. I've been known to hit Pop with some gnarly edits on the ice cream reviews, right? It's one thing when you do another guy dirty and you're a good sport about it, right? It's another thing when you just hop on there and just absolutely just torture yourself. Man.
Well, it's a family program, so we're not going to get into a lot of detail here.
I don't even know if we can show the picture.
It's a picture of RG3. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, sharing a croissant with his wife.
Enthusiastically sharing a croissant.
It was one of those where enthusiastically sharing a croissant with his wife. That's beautiful. That's perfectly said. So you let your imagination run wild and do your research of what that means. But I remember, like, I'm scrolling Twitter, and you just see the picture, and then I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get into the comments on this one. And you just wonder, like, does he know what he's doing? Does he honestly know what he's doing? He claims he stumbled into it. It was innocent, but he had to know. You put a picture like that out there, you got to know what the consequences are.
Look, man, if he stumbled into that, I got even more questions. I mean, in what world? That's not how you eat a croissant, man. It's disrespectful to the French. There's no way. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing.
So does he deserve a kick-out? I mean, he's getting clicks. He's getting more exposure. His Q rating's going up.
Because you got to have some self-respect, man. You got to, I could get more clicks if I started doing certain things on the internet. You got to, at a certain point, this is a guy that is so talented. He's such a great broadcaster. He really understands football in a great way in terms of the way he kind of breaks it down. Just a really talented cat overall and somebody that could have a really great, respectable career in media and just continues to shoot himself in the foot over and over and over again and destroy his credibility because all he cares about is that little bird notification keeps chirping at him. That's all he cares about. And it's so...
Maybe he's just really into croissants, especially large, oversized croissants.
That much is evident. He's a huge fan of French pastry. Huge fan. It's incredible. I mean, God, I say we wrap this thing up, Pop. I mean, my goodness.
Nothing left to say. This doesn't go. This only goes downhill from here. So
what in God's name is going on out here, man? Let's wrap this thing up.
It's back. The Cacats of the Week is back.
The Cacats of the Week is back, guys. You earned it. You guys stuck through like 56 minutes of the program to get to this point, so you earned it. Maybe we'll get it in before 45 minutes next week, but let's wrap this thing up here. Pop, without further ado, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thank you for another great week, everybody.